On our daughter's wedding day, my husband and I saw a photo of us at the entrance with a sign saying, "Do not let these two in." We turned around and left without a word. 2 hours later, she realized her wedding had ended the moment. Before we continue, I just want to say thank you for taking the time to hear my story. If you're comfortable, let me know where you're listening from, and what time it is where you are. Now let me tell you my story. The morning of Sophie's wedding, I woke up with butterflies in my stomach. The kind of nervous excitement that only comes a few times in your life. Your own wedding day, the birth of your child, and the day that child gets married. My name is Helen Morrison. I'm 68 years old, my husband Richard is 70, and today our only daughter Sophie was getting married to a man named Derek at the Grand Oak Estate, the most expensive wedding venue in the county. I'd been dreaming about this day since Sophie was born 30 years ago. Every mother does, I suppose. You imagine walking your daughter down the aisle, seeing her in her wedding dress dancing with her at the reception. You imagine the photos you'll take, the memories you'll make, the grandchildren who might come from this union. I had no idea that before the day was over I'd be sitting at home in my wedding clothes staring at bank statements and realizing my daughter had just taught me the most expensive lesson of my life. But I'm getting ahead of myself. That morning, Richard and I took our time getting dressed. I wore a champagne-colored dress that had cost more than I'd wanted to spend, but Sophie had insisted, "Mom, you can't wear something from JCPenney to my wedding. Patricia, that was Derek's mother, will judge you." Richard wore a new suit, also more expensive than he was comfortable with. We were blue-collar people. Richard had worked as a factory foreman for 40 years before retiring. I'd been a school cafeteria manager. We'd saved our money carefully, lived modestly, and always put Sophie first. Looking at ourselves in the mirror that morning, we looked elegant. Appropriate, like the parents of the bride should look. "You look beautiful," Richard said, straightening his tie. "You clean up pretty nice yourself," I replied, fixing his boutonniere. "I can't believe our little girl is getting married. She's not so little anymore. She'll always be little to me." We drove to the Grand Oak Estate in Richard's truck. Not fancy but reliable. It was a 45-minute drive, and we talked about everything and nothing, about how fast the years had gone, about how we hoped Derek would be good to her, about whether there would be grandchildren soon. "Do you think Sophie's happy?" Richard asked at one point. "Of course. Why wouldn't she be?" "I don't know. She's seemed stressed lately, and she barely talks to us anymore. She's been busy with wedding planning. That's normal." But even as I said it, I felt a nagging doubt. Sophie had been distant for months. Her calls were perfunctory, her visits brief, and when we did talk, it was usually because she needed something. Money for the wedding dress. Money for the venue deposit. Money for the photographer. We'd given it all without hesitation. That's what parents do. We arrived at the Grand Oak Estate at 3:30 p.m. The ceremony was scheduled for 4:00, with the reception immediately following. The estate was beautiful, rolling lawns, ancient oak trees, a mansion that had been converted into an event space. Richard parked in the guest lot, and we walked toward the main entrance, carrying the gift we'd wrapped so carefully, a set of antique silver candlesticks that had belonged to Richard's grandmother, along with a check for $5,000 as a wedding gift. We approached the entrance where guests were being directed inside. A young man in a security uniform stood by the door checking a list, and beside him on an easel was a large framed photograph. It was a photo of Richard and me, a recent photo taken just 2 months ago at Sophie's engagement party. We were smiling, dressed casually, looking happy, and beneath the photo in large printed letters on a professionally made sign were the words, "Do not let these two in." I stopped walking. Richard stopped beside me. We both stared at that sign for what felt like an eternity but was probably only 10 seconds. The security guard looked uncomfortable. He glanced at us, then at the photo, then at us again. He started. "Are you—" I looked at Richard, he looked at me. Neither of us said a word. Without speaking, without making a scene, without demanding to see Sophie or asking what this meant, we simply turned around and walked back to the truck. The security guard called after us. "Wait, I don't know if that sign is serious or—" We kept walking. Richard opened my door. I got in, he walked around to his side, got in, started the engine. We drove away from the Grand Oak Estate, away from our daughter's wedding, away from the day we'd been anticipating for 30 years. And we didn't say a single word to each other for the entire 45-minute drive home. When we got home, I went straight to the bedroom. I didn't take off my expensive dress. I just sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the wall. Richard stood in the doorway. Helen, he finally said. His voice was rough. Did we really just see what I think we saw? Yes. Our daughter. Our only daughter. Put our photo at her wedding entrance and told security not to let us in. Yes. The wedding we paid $35,000 for. That's when it hit me. The financial reality of what had just happened. I stood up and walked to Richard's study. He followed me. I pulled out the file where we kept all our financial records. Old school paper and pen because that's how we'd always done things. I found the bank statements. The transfers to Sophie. $35,000 transferred last month for her share of the venue, catering and bar service. $4,000 3 months ago for her wedding dress. $3,000 2 weeks ago for the rehearsal dinner we'd hosted at a nice restaurant. Plus smaller amounts. Flowers. The photographer deposit. The invitations. Total $42,000. We paid $42,000 for a wedding we weren't allowed to attend. I said aloud. Richard sank into his desk chair. Jesus, Helen? My phone started ringing. Sophie's name on the screen. I didn't answer. It rang again, and again. Richard's phone started ringing too. We sat there, in his study, in our wedding clothes, listening to our phones ring and ring and ring. Finally, I picked up my phone and turned it off. Richard did the same with his. The silence that followed was deafening. What do we do? Richard asked. I don't know. Should we call her? Demand an explanation? What explanation could possibly make this okay? He had no answer for that. I thought about Sophie, the little girl who used to crawl into our bed during thunderstorms, the teenager who'd cried on my shoulder when her first boyfriend broke her heart, the college graduate who'd hugged us both and thanked us for making her education possible. When had she become someone who would put our photo at her wedding entrance with a sign telling security to keep us out? I tried to remember the last time Sophie had said she loved me. The last time she'd visited just to visit, not because she needed something, the last time she'd seemed genuinely interested in our lives, not just waiting for her turn to talk about hers. I couldn't remember. Richard, I said slowly, when did we lose our daughter? I don't know, but I think it was before today. Later that evening, I turned my phone back on. There were 47 missed calls from Sophie, 23 voicemails. I listened to them in order. The first few were confused. Mom? Where are you? The ceremony is about to start. Call me back. Then panicked. Mom, this isn't funny. Where are you and Dad? Everyone's asking about you. Then angry, how could you just leave? Do you know how embarrassing this is? You're ruining my wedding. Then, hours later the tone shifted. Mom, I saw the sign. I'm so sorry. I didn't know Patricia was going to do that. She said it was a joke. Please call me back. And finally, the most recent, Mom, I know you're mad, but it was supposed to be funny. Patricia has a weird sense of humor. You're overreacting. Just come to the reception, please. I deleted every message without responding. Richard had similar voicemails on his phone. She thinks we're overreacting, I said. She put our photo at the door like we were criminals. And she thinks it was funny. Do you think it was Patricia's idea? Richard asked. Derek's mother? Does it matter? Sophie agreed to it. She allowed our photo to be displayed like that. She didn't warn us. She didn't stop it. We sat on the couch in our living room, still in our wedding clothes, trying to process what had happened. Tell me about Patricia, Richard said. I've only met her twice. What's she like? I thought back to the first time Sophie had introduced us to Derek and his mother 3 months ago. It had been at a restaurant. Derek seemed nice enough. A corporate lawyer, well-educated, professionally successful. Sophie was clearly smitten with him. But Patricia had sized us up within the first 5 minutes, and found us wanting. Your parents are so charming, she'd said to Sophie in a tone that made charming sound like an insult. Where did you say you worked, Helen? I was a school cafeteria manager, retired now. Oh, how nice. And Richard, you were in manufacturing. Factory foreman. 38 years. How honest. The word honest had been delivered with the same condescending tone. Blue collar, simple. Not good enough for her son. Over the following months, as wedding planning ramped up, Patricia had inserted herself into every decision. She'd taken over, actually steamrolling right over Sophie's preferences, and definitely over ours. Your mother's taste is so outdated, I'd overheard Patricia say to Sophie once. Let me handle the elegant details. Sophie had called me several times, sounding stressed, caught between wanting to please her future mother-in-law and trying to maintain some control over her own wedding. Mom, Patricia wants to do everything her way. She says your ideas are too simple. Sophie, it's your wedding. You should do what you want. But Derek says his mom has done this before. His sister's wedding was beautiful, and she knows all the best vendors. I don't want to offend her. Don't let her bully you. She's not bullying me. She's just confident. Now I understood. Patricia had been criticizing us, undermining us, making Sophie feel like her blue-collar parents were an embarrassment. And Sophie had been too weak, too eager to please her new family, to stand up for us. She chose them over us, I said to Richard. It looks that way. After everything we've done for her. Richard got up and went to the filing cabinet where we kept all our records. He pulled out a folder labeled Sophie and brought it to the couch. Inside were decades of receipts, records, documents, the financial history of raising our daughter. Richard opened a notebook where he'd always tracked major expenses. He'd been meticulous about it, the accountant in him needing to see where every dollar went. Let's see, he said, flipping through pages. College tuition and expenses over 4 years. $80,000. We paid half, she took loans for the rest. We thought we were teaching her responsibility, I said, making her have some skin in the game. After graduation we paid her rent while she got established. $1,500 a month for 2 years. That's $36,000. She said it was temporary. We bought her a car when her old one died. $25,000. She needed reliable transportation for her job. The wedding, $42,000. She's our only daughter. We wanted her to have a beautiful wedding. Richard did the math. $103,000. We've given Sophie $103,000 over the years, not counting birthday gifts, Christmas presents, helping her out when she had unexpected expenses. We sat there, looking at the number. Nearly $200,000 invested in our daughter's life. Given freely, lovingly, without expecting repayment. And she'd repaid us by putting our photo at her wedding entrance with a sign telling security to keep us out. I think I need to take off this dress, I said finally. It cost $400 and I wore it for an hour. I paid $600 for this suit. $1,000 of wedding clothes we wore to a wedding we didn't attend. We went upstairs to change. I hung the dress in the closet, knowing I'd never wear it again. Every time I looked at it, I'd remember this day. This terrible, humiliating, heartbreaking day. The next morning, I was in the kitchen making coffee when I heard a car in the driveway. I looked out the window and saw Sophie's car. Richard, I called. She's here. He came downstairs and we both stood in the kitchen waiting. Sophie burst through the front door without knocking. She was still in her wedding dress, a beautiful white gown that had cost $4,000 of our money. But the dress was rumpled now, her makeup was ruined, and her eyes were swollen from crying. How could you, she screamed. How could you just leave my wedding? I looked at her calmly. How could you put our photo at the entrance with a sign telling security not to let us in? It was Patricia's idea. It was supposed to be funny. What exactly is funny about humiliating your parents at your wedding? Richard asked. You're overreacting. It was a joke. Everyone makes jokes about in-laws. We're not your in-laws, Sophie, I said, my voice very quiet, very controlled. We're your parents. The parents who just paid $42,000 for that wedding you're still wearing the dress from. Sophie's face crumpled. I know you paid, I appreciate it. But you ruined everything by leaving. Everyone kept asking where you were. Derek's family thinks you hate me. Patricia says you disrespected her by walking out. Patricia, Richard repeated. Patricia who put our photo at the door like criminals. Patricia who apparently has convinced you that we're an embarrassment. She doesn't think that. She just has a different sense of humor. She didn't mean anything by it. What did Derek say? I asked. When he saw the sign, Sophie hesitated. He thought it was funny too. Your new husband thought it was funny to ban your parents from your wedding. It wasn't banning, it was a joke. We didn't find it funny, Sophie, I said. We found it humiliating, we found it cruel. We found it to be exactly what it was. A message that we weren't wanted there. But you were wanted. I wanted you there. I wanted you to see me get married. Then why didn't you warn us about the sign? Why didn't you stop Patricia from putting it up? I didn't know she was actually going to do it. She mentioned it as a joke a few weeks ago and I laughed because I thought she was kidding. I didn't know she'd follow through. And when you found out she had, when you saw it at your own wedding, did you take it down? Did you come find us? Sophie's silence was damning. You didn't even notice we were gone until 2 hours into your reception, Richard said. 2 hours, Sophie. Your parents weren't at your wedding and you didn't notice for 2 hours. I was busy. It was my wedding. There were photos and receiving lines and you were too busy to notice your parents were missing from your wedding. Sophie wiped her eyes, smearing mascara across her face. Okay. You're right to be mad. I get it. It was a terrible joke. Patricia went too far. I should have stopped it. But it's done now. The wedding's over. Can we please just move past this? Move past it? I repeated. Yes. I'm sorry, okay? I'm really sorry. It won't happen again. Now can we please? She took a breath. Derek and I need help with the honeymoon. We went over budget on the wedding and the resort in Cancun needs another $10,000 by next week. Can you write us a check? The room went silent. Sophie stood there in her wedding dress, makeup ruined from crying about how we'd embarrassed her by leaving, asking us for $10,000. Something inside me broke. Not shattered, that would imply it happened quickly. This was a slow, painful breaking, like ice cracking under too much weight. Wait here, I said. I went to Richard's study and retrieved the folder with our financial documents, the deed to our house, our retirement account statements, Richard's pension information, my life insurance policy. I brought it all back to the kitchen and spread it out on the table in front of Sophie. Do you know what this is? I asked her. She looked confused. Your paperwork? This is the deed to our house. Paid off. The house is worth $450,000 according to the latest appraisal. I pointed to the next document. This is our retirement fund. $320,000. This is Dad's pension plan. This is my life insurance policy. This is our savings account. Sophie stared at the papers, not understanding. We're not rich, Sophie, I said, but we're comfortable. We have enough for our retirement, enough for emergencies, enough to live well in our old age. And you've always assumed that one day all of this would be yours, because you're our only child. Sophie's eyes widened slightly. Well, yes. Did you ever wonder how much we have? Did you ever ask? No, I assumed you'd leave me everything. Everything we've worked for, everything we've saved, everything we've built. You assumed it would all be yours. I'm your daughter, Sophie said, as if that explained everything. Of course it'll be mine. Richard spoke up. You're our daughter, but does that mean you're entitled to our money, to our assets, to everything we've spent our lives building? Family takes care of family, Sophie said, sounding less certain now. Yes. I agreed. Family does take care of family. We've been taking care of you for 30 years. We paid for your education. We paid your rent. We bought you a car. We paid for your wedding. $133,000. Sophie, we've given you $183,000 over the years. Her face went pale. I didn't know it was that much. We never asked you to count. We never expected repayment. That's what parents do for their children. They give freely. They sacrifice willingly. They love unconditionally. So what's the problem? The problem is that you took all of that, all of our generosity, all of our sacrifice, all of our love, and you put our photo at your wedding entrance with a sign telling security to keep us out. It was a joke. It was humiliation. Richard's voice rose for the first time. It was cruelty. It was you showing us exactly how much we matter to you. That's not fair, isn't it? I asked quietly. Sophie, you didn't even notice we were gone. You didn't miss us at your ceremony. You didn't wonder where we were during the reception. You were having the time of your life without us. We were irrelevant to your special day, except for our $42,000. I wanted you there. Then why didn't you stop Patricia? Why didn't you take down the sign? Why didn't you call us immediately when you realized we'd left? I was embarrassed. Everyone was asking about you. I didn't know what to say. You were embarrassed that we left. Not embarrassed by the sign. Not ashamed that your mother-in-law had humiliated us. You were embarrassed that we refused to accept that humiliation. Sophie started crying again. I can't believe you're doing this. I can't believe you're making my wedding about you. We're not making it about us, honey, I said, my heart breaking as I said the words. We weren't even there. That's the point. So what now? Sophie demanded. You're going to punish me forever. Hold this over my head. Use it as an excuse not to help me. Richard and I looked at each other. A silent conversation passed between us. 45 years of marriage meant we could communicate without words. We're changing our will, Richard said. Sophie froze. What? We're changing our will, I repeated. You're not going to inherit our estate. You can't do that. I'm your daughter. We can do whatever we want. It's our money. We earned it, and we get to decide who deserves it. But it should go to me. I'm your only child. That money is supposed to be mine. Why? I asked simply. Why should it be yours? Because I'm your daughter. And that entitles you to our money? Regardless of how you treat us. You're being ridiculous. Every parent leaves money to their children. Not every parent, Richard said. Some parents leave it to charity. Some leave it to friends. Some spend it all before they die. There's no law that says we have to leave you anything. You can't do this, Sophie said, her voice rising to a near shriek. You're just mad about the stupid sign. You're overreacting. We're reacting appropriately. I said. Sophie, you publicly humiliated us at your wedding, the wedding we paid for. You took our money and then you literally put our faces on a sign telling security to keep us out. And now the morning after you're here demanding more money for your honeymoon. You don't see us as parents, you see us as a bank. That's not true. Prove it. Tell me the last time you visited us when you didn't need money. Tell me the last time you called just to talk. Not because you wanted something. Tell me one thing you know about our lives right now. Our health, our friends, our daily activities. Sophie opened her mouth, then closed it. She couldn't answer. We're done financing your life, Sophie, Richard said. We're done being your bank. We're done being people you only remember exist when you need something. But I'm your daughter, you're supposed to help me. That's what parents do. Help you, I asked. We've given you $103,000. We've paid for your entire adult life. And you repaid us by banning us from your wedding. No, Sophie, we're done helping. She stood there trembling with rage, her wedding dress dirty at the hem, her face blotchy with tears. You'll regret this, she said finally. Derek's family is wealthy. We don't need you or your money. We were doing you a favor by letting you contribute to the wedding. A favor, Richard repeated flatly. Yes, Patricia wanted to pay for everything. She said your contributions were charity. But I insisted on letting you pay because I wanted you to feel involved. It was like being slapped. Every word was a small cruelty, revealing the depths of how little she valued us. Get out, I said quietly. What? Get out of our house. Now. You can't kick me out. I'm your daughter. You're our daughter who just told us that our $42,000 was charity. That letting us pay for your wedding was a favor to us. Get out, Sophie. Get out before I say something I really can't take back. She stood there for another moment, looking between us, maybe expecting us to crack, to soften, to be the parents who always gave in. But we didn't crack. Fine, she spat. Fine. I don't need you. I don't need your money. Derek and I will be just fine without you. She stormed out, slamming the door so hard the house shook. Richard and I stood in the kitchen surrounded by our financial documents, listening to her car peel out of the driveway. Did we just lose our daughter? Richard asked. I think we lost her a long time ago, I replied. We're just now admitting it. The next Monday we made an appointment with Martin Burke, the lawyer who'd handled our estate planning 10 years ago. Martin was 65, semi-retired, but he still took on cases for old friends. Helen, Richard, he greeted us warmly. Good to see you. What brings you in today? We want to change our will, I said. All right. What kind of changes are we talking about? Complete changes, Richard said. We want to remove our daughter as beneficiary. Martin's eyebrows rose. That's a significant change. May I ask why? We told him everything. The wedding, the sign, Sophie's reaction, her demand for honeymoon money, her comment about our contribution being charity. Martin listened without interrupting. When we finished, he sat back in his chair. I'm so sorry, he said simply. That's a terrible thing for a parent to experience. So you'll help us change the will? I asked. I will, but I need to make sure you understand what you're doing. This is a big decision. Are you certain? We're certain, Richard said firmly. Our daughter publicly humiliated us at her wedding. She took our money and then told us we weren't welcome. She sees us as an ATM, not as parents. We're done enabling that. What do you want to do with your estate? We discussed this over the weekend. We want to split it between 3 charities, the scholarship fund at the community college. That's where Sophie went before transferring to the university. The veterans organization, Richard's father was a veteran, and the children's hospital where Sophie was treated when she was 5. And Sophie? Sophie gets $1, I said. So she can't claim she was accidentally forgotten. Martin nodded slowly. That's actually smart. Leaving her a nominal amount proves you deliberately chose not to leave her more. It makes the will much harder to contest. She'll try to contest it, Richard asked. Possibly. Especially if she believes she's entitled to your estate. But if you leave her $1, if you document your reasoning, if you're clearly of sound mind when you execute the new will, a judge will almost certainly uphold your decision. It's your money. You have the right to leave it to whoever you want. Even if it's not our child. Even then, parents aren't legally required to leave their children anything. Many people don't realize that. He pulled out the necessary paperwork. I'll draft a new will. It'll take about a week. In the meantime, don't discuss this with Sophie. Not until everything is signed and notarized. She's not speaking to us anyway, I said. She made it clear she doesn't need us. Give her time. She might come around. And if she does? If she apologizes? That's up to you, but I'd suggest making sure any apology is genuine, not motivated by knowing about the will change. We left Martin's office feeling both relieved and sad. Relieved that we were taking control, that we were drawing boundaries, that we were protecting ourselves from being used. But sad that it had come to this. That evening I was doing dishes when Richard came into the kitchen with his phone. Sophie's been texting me, he said. Saying what? Asking for money. Apparently the resort won't let them check in without the full payment, and Derek's credit card was declined, and she wants us to pay. $10,000. She says it's urgent and they'll pay us back. They won't pay us back? I know. What are you going to tell her? I already told her. I said no. I looked at my husband, this man I'd been married to for 45 years, and I saw the pain in his eyes. Saying no to our child went against every parental instinct. But it was the right thing to do. How did she respond? I asked. She hasn't yet. His phone buzzed. He looked at it, then showed me the screen. Sophie's message read, I can't believe you're doing this. You're willing to ruin my honeymoon over a stupid sign. You're the worst parents ever. Richard typed back, we're not ruining your honeymoon. You and Derek ruined it by spending more than you could afford and expecting us to bail you out. This is not our responsibility. The response came quickly, when I have kids, I'll never treat them the way you're treating me. I took Richard's phone and typed, when you have kids, we hope you'll teach them to respect their parents, to value family, to understand that love isn't measured in dollars. We hope you'll teach them everything we apparently failed to teach you. I hit send before I could second-guess myself. The response, I hate you both. Richard gently took the phone back and turned it off. That's enough for tonight. Over the next 2 months, Sophie tried everything. First came the apology texts, which we ignored. Then came angry messages calling us selfish and cruel. Then she tried using hypothetical future grandchildren as leverage. You'll never meet your grandkids. They'll grow up not even knowing you exist. Then Patricia called. Derek's mother, the woman who'd started this entire disaster. Helen, she said, her voice dripping with condescension. I understand you and Richard are upset about a little joke at the wedding. It wasn't a joke, Patricia. Well, Sophie seems to think you're overreacting. Apparently you're refusing to help with the honeymoon. That seems rather petty. Patricia, did you put our photo at the wedding entrance? I thought it would be amusing. A little light-hearted humor. No one actually expected security to keep you out. The sign said, do not let these 2 in. What else would security think? Oh, they would have used their judgment. You should have just walked past it. We chose not to. Yes, and you embarrassed Sophie terribly. Everyone was talking about it. Her own parents walking out on her wedding. It was very dramatic. We didn't walk out. Patricia, we never walked in, because your sign told us we weren't welcome. You're being ridiculous. This is just the kind of working-class sensitivity I warned Derek about. No sense of humor. Something in her tone, the casual classism, the dismissive cruelty made me angrier than I'd been since the wedding. Patricia, let me be very clear. Your joke cost you the very thing you wanted. You wanted us gone from Sophie's life because we're working class and you found us embarrassing. Congratulations, you got your wish. We're done. Sophie can have her fancy in-laws. She can have Patricia's elegant taste and sophisticated sense of humor. What she won't have is our money, our time, or our presence in her life. So thank you, Patricia. You won this round. I hung up. Richard looked at me with something like pride. You told her off? Someone needed to. Do you think Sophie knows Patricia called us? Probably. Patricia probably said she'd handle us. And instead you told her exactly what we should have said at the wedding. I wish I'd said it at the wedding. I wish I'd made a scene, but we were in shock. We didn't know what to say. We said enough by leaving, Richard replied. Sometimes silence is the loudest statement you can make. 3 months after the wedding, Sophie and Derek showed up at our house unannounced. We were gardening when they pulled up. Mom, Dad, Derek said, approaching with his hand extended like this was a business meeting. We need to talk. About what? Richard asked, not shaking his hand. About this situation. It's gone on long enough. You're being unreasonable, and it's affecting Sophie's mental health. I'm sorry Sophie's struggling, I said carefully. But we're not being unreasonable. We were humiliated at her wedding, and she's shown no genuine remorse. She apologized, Derek said. She apologized and then immediately asked for $10,000. That's not an apology, that's a transaction. Sophie stepped forward. Mom, please. I've learned my lesson. I understand I hurt you. Can't we just move past this? Move past it how? Sophie, what's changed? I'm willing to forgive you for leaving the wedding. I blinked. You're willing to forgive us? Yes, I know you were upset about the sign, but walking out was extreme. You humiliated me in front of all my guests, but I'm willing to let it go if you'll help us out financially. Richard laughed. Actually laughed. You're willing to forgive us for being humiliated. Someone has to be the bigger person, Sophie said. I'm trying to extend an olive branch here. Derek jumped in. Look, here's the bottom line. You owe Sophie. She's your daughter. You're supposed to take care of her. Family takes care of family. That's how it works. We've taken care of her for 30 years, I said. We've given her nearly $200,000. We're done. You can't be done. She's your daughter. Family doesn't put photos of family at the door with "Don't let them in" signs, Richard said. That was Patricia's joke. How many times do we have to apologize for something we didn't do? You allowed it to happen, Sophie. I said. You saw the sign before the wedding. You laughed about it, you didn't stop it, and then you didn't even notice we were missing for 2 hours. That's not Patricia's fault. That's yours. Fine. Sophie shouted. I was a bad daughter. Is that what you want to hear? I made a mistake. But you're making a bigger mistake by cutting me off. When you die, that money should come to me. I'm your only child. I'm entitled to it. You're not entitled to anything, Richard said quietly. The fact that you think you are is exactly why we're done. Derek's face turned red. You know what? Screw this. We don't need you or your money. I make 6 figures. We're doing fine. Come on, Sophie. They stormed off to their car. But before getting in, Sophie turned back. You're going to regret this. When I have kids, when you have grandchildren, you'll come crawling back begging to be part of their lives. And I'll remember this. They drove away, tires squealing. Richard and I stood in our garden, covered in dirt, watching them go. She used future children as a threat, I said. I noticed. Should we tell her about the will? Not yet. Martin said to wait until we're ready. When will we be ready? I don't know, but not today. 6 months after the wedding, Sophie called me from a number I didn't recognize. I answered without thinking. Mom? Her voice was different, softer, almost vulnerable. Sophie. Mom, I wanted to call and apologize. Really apologize. I've been thinking a lot about what happened, about what I did, and you were right. I was terrible to you and Dad. I was silent, waiting. I was so caught up in impressing Patricia, in fitting into Derek's family, that I lost sight of what really mattered. You and Dad gave me everything. You sacrificed for me your whole lives, and I threw it back in your face. Go on, I said carefully. I understand why you're angry. I understand why you don't want to help us anymore. And I don't blame you. I wanted you to know that I get it now. I see what I did wrong. And I'm truly, truly sorry. Something in me wanted to soften. This was my daughter, my only child. And she sounded genuinely remorseful. Thank you for saying that, Sophie. So, do you think maybe we could have dinner? The 3 of us. I want to start over. I want to rebuild our relationship. Richard was watching me, listening to my side of the conversation. I mouthed to him, "She wants to have dinner." He made a your choice gesture. "Okay," I said, "we can have dinner?" "Really? Oh Mom, thank you. How about this Saturday? There's a nice Italian place downtown." "That works." "I love you, Mom." "I love you too, Sophie." After I hung up, Richard asked, "Do you believe her?" "I don't know, but she's our daughter. Don't we have to give her a chance?" After everything. After everything. That Saturday we met Sophie at Valentino's, an expensive Italian restaurant downtown. Sophie was already there when we arrived, sitting at a table looking nervous. She stood when she saw us. "Mom, Dad, thank you for coming." We sat down. The server brought menus. We ordered drinks. "You look good," Sophie said. "How have you been?" "We've been fine," I said. "Gardening, reading." "Richard's been volunteering at the Veterans Center." "That's great, Dad." "How have you been?" Richard asked. "Honestly, not great. Derek and I have been fighting a lot. Patricia is constantly involved in our lives. Work has been stressful, and I've been thinking about you guys constantly, feeling terrible about what I did." "We appreciate you saying that," I said. The food came. We ate. Sophie talked about her job, about Derek, about their life. It felt almost normal. Then, toward the end of the meal, Sophie's demeanor changed slightly. "So Mom, Dad, I wanted to talk to you about something. Here it comes. I thought, Derek and I found a house, a really perfect house. It's in a great neighborhood, close to work, has a big yard for when we have kids." "That sounds nice," Richard said neutrally. "The thing is, we need a down payment. It's $100,000. And with Derek's student loans and my credit card debt, we can't get approved for the full mortgage without putting more down." I set down my fork. "You invited us to dinner to ask for $100,000. No, I invited you to apologize and reconnect. But while we're here, I thought maybe, if you're willing." "This whole apology was about money," I said quietly. "No, I really am sorry, but also yes, we need help. And you're my parents. This is what parents do. They help their kids buy houses." Richard's face had gone hard. "Sophie, we've given you nearly $200,000 over the years. How much more do you think we owe you?" "I'm not asking you to owe me anything. I'm asking for help. This house is an investment. When you die," she stopped herself. "When we die, what?" I asked. "I didn't mean, you were going to say that when we die you'll inherit the house anyway. That's what you were thinking, wasn't it?" Sophie's silence confirmed it. I looked at Richard. He looked at me. Another wordless conversation. "Sophie," Richard said slowly, "we changed our will." She went very still. "What?" "After your wedding, after everything that happened, we changed our will. You're not inheriting our estate." The color drained from her face. "What? You can't do that." "We already did," I said. "Our estate is going to charity. You're inheriting $1. "No." Sophie's voice rose. Other diners were starting to look at us. "You can't do this. I'm your daughter. That money is mine." "That money is ours," Richard said firmly. "We earned it, and we get to decide who deserves it. But I'm your only child. You're supposed to leave me everything. That's how it works." "No, Sophie," I said, "that's not how it works. Inheritance isn't automatic. It's earned through respect, through love, through treating your parents like human beings instead of ATMs." "This is because of the stupid sign? One mistake and you're cutting me off completely?" "It's not about the sign, Sophie. It's about what the sign represented. You put our photo at your wedding entrance. The wedding we paid $42,000 for and told security not to let us in. And when we left, you didn't even notice for 2 hours. And even now, 6 months later, you don't really get what you did wrong," Richard added. "This whole dinner was a setup to ask for $100,000. The apology was just the opening act. So what? You're punishing me forever? You're going to die and leave me with nothing? We're leaving you $1. So you can't claim you were forgotten." Sophie was crying now, her voice breaking. "I'm your daughter, you can't do this to me. You put our photo at your wedding entrance with a sign telling security to keep us out," I said, my voice steady. "You took our money and humiliated us. And even now, you're more upset about losing your inheritance than about losing your relationship with us." "That's not true." "Isn't it? You just said that money is mine, not I miss you or I want my parents back. Your first thought was about the money." Sophie stood up, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. This isn't over. I'll contest the will. I'll get a lawyer. You can't just cut me off like this. We already talked to a lawyer, Richard said. The will is ironclad, but you're welcome to try. It'll cost you thousands in legal fees for nothing. Sophie stared at us, her face red with anger and tears. I hate you. I hate you both. You're the worst parents in the world. Maybe we are, I said sadly, but we're done being your bank. She ran out of the restaurant, leaving us with the check and the stares of other diners. Richard paid. We walked out in silence. In the car, I started crying. Not loud sobs, just quiet tears. She's really gone, I said. Our daughter is really gone. She's been gone for a while, Richard replied. We're just now admitting it. Did we do the right thing? I don't know, but it felt right. For the first time in months, I don't feel like we're being used. 1 year after the wedding, Richard and I had settled into a new normal. A life without Sophie felt strange at first, but over time it felt freeing. We started volunteering at the 3 charities we'd named in our will. The Scholarship Fund, where we helped low-income students apply for financial aid. The Veterans Organization, where Richard mentored young vets transitioning to civilian life. The Children's Hospital, where I read to sick kids. At the hospital one day, I met another volunteer named Margaret. She was 72, cheerful, energetic. I love volunteering here, she said. It's so much more meaningful than waiting around for my kids to call. You have difficult relationships with your kids too? I asked. I have 3 children. None of them speak to me anymore. I set boundaries about how they treated me, and they didn't like it. So they cut me off. I'm sorry. Don't be. I spent 60 years putting my kids first. The last 10 years I've been putting myself first. It's been the best decade of my life. She introduced me to a support group. A estranged parent support circle, they called it. About 20 people, all elderly, all with similar stories. Children who only called when they needed money. Children who were abusive or neglectful. Children who'd cut them off entirely. The thing people don't talk about, one man said, is that sometimes your kids just turn out to be bad people. You can raise them right, give them everything, love them completely, and they still turn out to be selfish, cruel, entitled. It's not always the parents' fault. That hit home. At one meeting, the moderator asked if anyone wanted to share their story. I raised my hand. My name is Helen, I started. My husband and I have 1 daughter. On her wedding day, the wedding we paid $42,000 for, she put our photo at the entrance with a sign saying, "Do not let these 2 in." The room gasped. We saw the sign. We turned around and left without saying a word. 2 hours later, she realized we were gone. I told them everything. The phone calls, Sophie showing up in her wedding dress, the honeymoon money demand, the will change, the dinner 6 months later that turned out to be about asking for $100,000. When I finished, an older woman across the circle was crying.
That's my story,
She said. Different details, but the same story. My son wanted money for a business. I said no. He told me I was a terrible mother. That was 5 years ago. I haven't seen my grandchildren since. Another person, my daughter stole my credit cards and ran up $40,000 in debt in my name. When I reported it to the police, she told everyone I was senile and didn't know what I was doing. Story after story. Parents who'd sacrificed, loved, given everything and been rewarded with abuse, neglect, theft, cruelty. The hardest part, one man said, is that people don't believe you. They think there must be more to the story. They think you must have done something to deserve it. They can't accept that sometimes, children hurt their parents for no good reason. After that meeting, I felt less alone. Richard and I weren't the only ones going through this. The senior center asked me to give a talk about elder abuse. They wanted me to focus on financial exploitation by family members. I agreed. The day of the talk, about 60 people showed up. Mostly elderly, but some middle-aged people too. I stood at the front of the room and told my story. My name is Helen Morrison. I'm 69 years old. 1 year ago my daughter banned me from her wedding. The wedding I paid $42,000 for. I showed them a photo, Richard and me, standing outside the Grand Oak estate, dressed in our expensive wedding clothes, looking hurt and confused. She put our photo at the entrance with a sign that said, "Do not let these 2 in." We saw it. We left. We didn't make a scene. We just left. I showed them the bank statements, the $42,000 in wedding expenses, the $103,000 given over 30 years. We changed our will. Our estate is going to charity. Our daughter is inheriting $1. I showed them the responses. The angry texts. The manipulative phone calls. The fake apology dinner that turned out to be about asking for $100,000. I'm telling you this story because I want you to understand something. We don't owe our children our money. We don't owe them our dignity. We don't owe them our self-respect. Inheritance isn't a right. It's earned through respect, through love, through treating your parents like human beings. My daughter treated me like a bank, like an ATM that occasionally needed to be placated but primarily existed to dispense money. And when I stopped dispensing, she had no more use for me. I want you all to know, it's okay to set boundaries. It's okay to say no. It's okay to protect yourself from your own children if they're abusing you. People will tell you that family is forever, that you should forgive anything, that children deserve unlimited chances. But those people aren't living your life. They're not being hurt. They're not being used. Only you can decide what you're willing to accept, and only you can decide when enough is enough. After the talk, dozens of people approached me. Most wanted to share their own stories. Some wanted advice. A few just wanted to say thank you. An elderly man in his 80s pulled me aside. My son hasn't called me in 3 years, but he called last week asking me to loan him $50,000. I said no. He called me selfish. Your talk helped me realize I made the right choice. A woman in her 70s, my daughter is pressuring me to add her to my bank accounts in case of emergency, but my gut says it's wrong. After hearing your story, I'm trusting my gut. That evening, Richard and I sat on our porch, watching the sunset. You did good today, he said. I just told the truth. Sometimes that's what people need to hear. The truth, not platitudes about family being forever, but the truth that sometimes family hurts you and it's okay to protect yourself. Do you think Sophie will ever understand what she did? Maybe, maybe not. But that's not our problem anymore. Do you miss her? He thought about it. I miss who I thought she was. I don't miss who she actually is. That's sad. It is. But it's also freeing. We're not waiting for her to call. We're not wondering if today's the day she'll finally understand. We're just living our lives. Living our lives without our daughter. Living our lives without someone who hurt us repeatedly and showed no genuine remorse. 3 months later, we received a letter. The return address was Sophie's. Richard and I sat at the kitchen table, looking at the envelope. Should we open it? I asked. It's your decision. I opened it. Inside was a short letter, handwritten. Mom and Dad, it read. I'm pregnant. The baby is due in 4 months. Don't you want to meet your grandchild? I'm willing to forgive everything if you'll help us with baby expenses. Derek and I need about $20,000 for the nursery, medical bills and baby supplies. Please call me. Love, Sophie. I read it aloud to Richard. When I finished, we sat in silence. She's using a baby as a bargaining chip, Richard said finally. She thinks we'll cave because we want to meet our grandchild. Will we? I thought about it. I thought about holding a baby, my daughter's child, my grandchild. I thought about birthday parties and Christmas mornings and all the things grandparents dream about. But I also thought about the sign, the humiliation, the years of being treated like an ATM, the fake apologies, the constant manipulation. No, I said, we won't. You're sure? I'm sure. Sophie hasn't changed. She's just found a new way to manipulate us. And if we give in now, if we send that $20,000, we'll be right back where we started. She'll have learned that if she needs money, all she has to do is dangle our grandchild in front of us. It means we might never meet the baby. I know. And that breaks my heart. But Richard, we can't set ourselves on fire to keep Sophie warm. We can't let her keep hurting us just because she's our daughter or because she's having a child. Richard picked up the letter and tore it in half, then in quarters, then into tiny pieces. We're not responding, he said. We're not responding. We threw the pieces away. And we didn't call Sophie. 2 years after the wedding, Richard had a health scare. A minor heart attack, thankfully caught early, treated successfully. But it reminded us that we weren't getting any younger. We updated our will one more time, making sure everything was in order. The charities would inherit everything. Sophie would get her $1. Do you have any regrets? Our lawyer Martin asked. About the will? No, I said. About Sophie? I regret that our relationship ended the way it did. I regret that she never learned to value family over money. But I don't regret protecting ourselves. I don't regret setting boundaries. I don't regret walking away from that wedding. You did the right thing, Martin said. People keep saying that, but it doesn't feel right. It feels sad. It can be both, he replied. You can do the right thing and still be sad about it. That's the tragedy of family estrangement. There are no happy endings, just necessary endings. We left his office and drove home in comfortable silence. After 47 years of marriage, we didn't always need words. At home I made dinner while Richard read the paper. Normal evening. Normal life. A life without our daughter, but a peaceful life nonetheless. The phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Hello? Mrs. Morrison, an unfamiliar woman's voice. This is Ashley Carter. I'm a social worker at County General Hospital. My heart dropped. Is everything okay? I'm calling because your daughter Sophie Martinez was admitted this afternoon. She had some complications with her pregnancy. She's fine now, but she asked us to call you. Is the baby? The baby is fine, but Mrs. Morrison, Sophie is requesting that you and your husband come to the hospital. She says she needs to talk to you. I looked at Richard, covered the phone. Sophie's in the hospital, pregnancy complications. She wants us to come. Do you want to go? He asked. I don't know. I uncovered the phone. Ms. Carter, can you tell Sophie we'll think about it? Of course. I'll let her know. After I hung up, Richard and I sat at the kitchen table. It could be another manipulation, I said. A way to get us there so she can ask for money again. Could be. Or she might actually need us. She might be scared. She's going to be a mother. Maybe that's changed her. Maybe. What should we do? Richard thought about it for a long time. We go. Because if we don't, we'll always wonder. We go, because she's in a hospital and she's scared. We go, because that's who we are. But Helen, if she asks for money, if this is another setup, we leave. Immediately. Agreed. We drove to County General. It was evening. The hospital quiet. We found Sophie's room on the maternity floor. I knocked softly. Sophie? Mom? Her voice was weak. Tearful. You came. We entered. Sophie was in the hospital bed hooked up to monitors, her face pale. She looked young, vulnerable, scared. What happened? I asked, my mother's instinct overriding everything else. Preeclampsia. My blood pressure spiked. They got it under control, but I have to stay here for monitoring. The baby's okay, but they might have to induce early. Where's Derek? Richard asked. On a business trip. He can't get back until tomorrow. She started crying. I was so scared. I thought I was going to die. I thought the baby was going to die, and all I could think about was how I haven't talked to you in 2 years. How I ruined everything between us. I sat down carefully on the edge of her bed. You're going to be okay. The baby's going to be okay. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry. Not because I need money. Not because I want something. I'm sorry because I was a terrible daughter. I'm sorry because I humiliated you at my wedding. I'm sorry because I only ever called when I needed money. I'm sorry because I treated you like an ATM instead of like my mother. These weren't the same apologies as before. These were raw, real, born from genuine fear. I thought I was going to die without ever making this right. She continued, without ever telling you how much I love you. How much I've always loved you. How much I took you for granted. Sophie. No. Let me finish. Please. I know you changed your will. I know I'm not inheriting anything, and I deserve that. I earned that. But Mom, Dad, I don't want your money. I want you. I want my parents. I want my child to know their grandparents. Please, can we start over? I looked at Richard. He was crying. Silent tears running down his face. We're here, I said simply. We came when you called. That's something. Does that mean? It means we'll see. We'll take it day by day. If you're really different, if you've really learned, we can rebuild. But Sophie, we're not going back to the way things were. We're not your bank. We're not here to finance your life. I don't want you to be. I just want you to be my parents again. We stayed with her that night. Derek arrived the next day and I saw him through new eyes. He was awkward, uncertain, clearly feeling guilty about not being there when Sophie needed him. Mr. and Mrs. Morrison, he said, thank you for being here. I know things have been difficult between all of us. That's an understatement, Richard said. I know, and I take responsibility for a lot of it. My mother Patricia has some very old-fashioned ideas about class and status. She influenced how I saw you, and that was wrong. Sophie didn't need to be caught between our family and yours. She needed support from both sides. And the sign at the wedding? I asked directly. Derek had the grace to look ashamed. Patricia's idea, I should have stopped it. I thought it was funny at the time. I was wrong. It was cruel. I'm sorry. It wasn't enough. It would never be enough. But it was something. Sophie's baby, our granddaughter Emma, was born a week later. Healthy, beautiful, perfect. The first time I held her I cried. Richard cried. Sophie cried. Her name is Emma Helen Morrison Martinez, Sophie said. I wanted her to have your name, Mom. I looked at my daughter, at this woman who'd hurt me so deeply, who was now a mother herself, and I saw something different in her eyes. Not the calculation, not the entitlement, just love and fear, and hope. Thank you, I whispered. Over the following months, we rebuilt, slowly, carefully, with boundaries clearly established and enforced. Sophie didn't ask us for money. Not once. When they struggled financially, she and Derek figured it out themselves. When they needed babysitting, Sophie asked if we were available, not if we could drop everything immediately. The will remained unchanged. Sophie knew this. We told her directly. I understand, she'd said. I earned that, but I hope I can earn back your trust, even if I can't earn back my inheritance. One day, almost 3 years after the wedding, Sophie asked if we could all have dinner. Just us. Not at a restaurant, but at their house. We agreed. She cooked, nothing fancy, just spaghetti and salad. Emma was toddling around, babbling. Derek was helping in the kitchen. After dinner, after Emma was in bed, Sophie brought out something I hadn't expected. A photo, the same photo that had been at the wedding entrance. The one with the sign. I've kept this, she said quietly, not displayed, just in a drawer. And every time I've been tempted to fall back into old patterns, to ask you for money, or treat you like a bank, I look at this photo, and I remember what I did, and I make myself do better. She handed the photo to me. I want you to have it, or burn it, or whatever you want to do with it, but I don't want to keep it anymore. I don't want to be the person who did that. I looked at the photo, the sign, do not let these two in. Richard and I at our daughter's wedding entrance, being told we weren't welcome. I should have felt anger, but instead I felt something else, sadness for the time we'd lost. But also pride. Pride in my daughter for facing what she'd done. Pride in us for setting boundaries. Pride in all of us for finding our way back slowly, painfully, to something like a family. I'm going to keep it, I said. Not to punish you, but to remember what we all learned from this. What did we learn? Sophie asked. That love isn't automatic. That family isn't automatic. That relationships require respect, effort, genuine care. That parents aren't infinite resources. That children aren't entitled to their parents' money or time, or forgiveness. And that sometimes, Richard added, the most powerful thing you can do is walk away, even when it breaks your heart. Sophie nodded, tears streaming down her face. I'm sorry. I'll probably say that for the rest of my life. But I'm sorry. We know, I said. The will remains unchanged. Our estate goes to charity. Sophie gets $1, and Sophie has accepted this. It's fair, she told us. I squandered my inheritance when I put that sign up. I don't deserve a second chance at your money. I'm just grateful I got a second chance at having you as my parents. Now, at 71 and 73, Richard and I volunteer at senior centers, talking about elder abuse, about financial exploitation by family members, about setting boundaries. Our daughter banned us from her wedding. I tell audiences, the wedding we paid $42,000 for, she put our photo at the entrance with a sign saying do not let these two in. We left without a word, and we changed our will. We tell you this not to encourage estrangement, but to encourage boundaries, to encourage self-respect, to encourage you to remember that you don't owe your children unlimited access to your resources or your dignity. Our story has a happy-ish ending. Our daughter eventually learned, eventually changed, eventually earned back a relationship with us, but it took 3 years, and it required us to stand firm on our boundaries. Not every story ends that way. Some parents never reconnect with their children. Some children never learn. And that's okay. You can love someone and still protect yourself from them. After one talk, an elderly woman approached me. Thank you for sharing your story. My daughter hasn't spoken to me in 5 years because I wouldn't give her money to start a business. Your talk helped me realize I wasn't wrong to say no. Another man, my son stole from me, forged my signature on loans. I reported it to the police, and my family said I should drop the charges because he's family. But he's not in jail, and I don't regret holding him accountable. These conversations remind me why telling our story matters. So many elderly parents are being abused, exploited, manipulated by their own children, and they suffer in silence because society tells them family is forever, forgiveness is mandatory, children deserve unlimited chances. But we're here to say no. You have the right to protect yourself, even from your own children, especially from your own children. My name is Helen Morrison. I'm 71 years old. My daughter banned me from her wedding, and I walked away without a word. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. It was also the best thing I've ever done, because walking away taught my daughter something she desperately needed to learn, that parents are people, not ATMs. That respect must be earned, not demanded. That relationships require genuine care, not just biological connection. And walking away taught me something too, that I'm strong enough to set boundaries, that I matter, that my dignity is worth protecting. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is walk away, even when it breaks your heart. Because sometimes, walking away is the only thing that might make people realize what they've lost. And if they never realize it, then you've still protected yourself. And that's enough. That has to be enough.